it with that.
All
I'm really excited.
right. I've got something I wanted to share today. A few people said they couldn't be here, so I'll record this so they can have it as well. But before I jump in, is there any specific challenges going? I know we have a call coming up too, but any specific challenges that either of you guys is facing that you want to throw into the gauntlet for a second? I got two no shakes. So, 'tis the season to be busy. We've been talking about this a lot. Actually, on the last call 2 weeks ago, we talked about the fact that, like, everyone's struggling with time and whether managing a book of business or just a bunch of responsibility. And so I just wanted to talk about, like, practically what it looks like to overcome busyness and how to create some balance between filling and managing a pipeline with still taking on the responsibilities that you have. And obviously, those responsibilities are very different, even between you two on the call, very, very different responsibilities. But I just want to talk about really more of, like, being productive. I think a lot of times, like, busy is just a thing we say, and it may kind of partly be what we. I think that we need to focus a lot more on productivity than just busyness. And again, I try to keep tension with the fact that sometimes, especially Matt, for somebody like you, it's like I am just running 17 different ways because I'm running a business and I'm managing some accounts and I'm trying to grow the business, but I can't do it all right now. So there's just a lot going on, so I'm trying to keep kind of that all in tension, but I want to just talk about a couple things. So first of all, just some practical ways in which you can detect whether you are busy or whether you are productive. So one of the things that I see is a lot of times, again, we love being busy, but at the end of the day, we kind of just don't even know what the hell we did. And sometimes it's because of a whirlwind, but other times it's because, like, we just get steeped in crap that we don't really need to do. And we just get so distracted and caught off that, again, we don't even know if we were really productive. So there's a simple little audit. This is particularly for the sales side of things. So again, if you're doing other things, you're going to have to save that for later, but specifically as it relates to revenue generating responsibilities. So the first thing I like to do is just, like, as you look at your day, so 6, 8, 10, 12, whatever, however many hours you are working at the end of every day for a week straight. What I would suggest doing is looking at how many hours you spent on revenue generating activities and how many hours you spent on everything else. And so revenue generating activity could be anything from I created content for social media. It could be I was researching for lead gen. It could be I was picking up the phone. I was sending an email. I was sending a DM. I was following up with somebody. All of those things are considered revenue generating activities. Anything, let's not be too liberal here, but really anything that points towards you moving closer to producing more revenue would be a revenue generating activity. What's scary for me is that typically, especially like a pure sales role in this business, I typically find it's like 50-50 or maybe even 60-40 in favor of admin. And that's pretty scary considering the fact that if your primary role, your title is sales, and you're spending 50% of your time on shit not related to revenue generation, you're going to be in big trouble down the line. And this is not even like, so how do you solve the problem yet? Because there's obviously a lot of things that you have to consider. Like, do I outsource? Do I just say no to things? Right? There's a lot that goes into that. First off is just a split. And I would even say, Gwen, for somebody like you, obviously you're being asked to do a ton of different things, which totally makes sense right now. You're trying to fill a lot of gaps with what Thomas is doing, but it's like, but if I find myself so steeped in administration that I actually can't even help, like, by doing administrative work, you're helping take things off of his plate so he can sell more. But if you're not also able to do that, then it's like, man, what am I going to do? So anyway, so that's one. Second thing is making sure that you are keeping track of your actual numbers. So the things that I think are really important are how many outbound touches you're making every single week, how many follow-ups you're doing every single week to existing open opportunities, and lastly, how many proposals you're sending and or deals you're presenting. So either one of those. So just keep track of that, because everybody throws really random numbers out there because nobody knows what consistency should look like. So for somebody, it could mean like, I do 25 touches a week. For somebody else, I was just on a call in a different industry, trust me, but I was just on a coaching call with a client right before this. She's doing 500 touches a week. And that may be a little bit too many, but she's just about in the realm of the business that they're in and the time that she's 100% outbound. So it's like for her, 500 is the number. For you, it could be 50. So you need to figure out what that is. But as you're trying to figure out what a good number is, my suggestion is just write down your numbers and keep track of them week by week. Because if you notice them going down, that means you're getting too distracted into non-sales related activities. If you notice they're going up, then I'm like, oh, I'm on the right track. I should start to produce more revenue as a result of doing more activity. So that's number two. And then the third one, I just like to think about this one because a lot of you guys are doing networking centers of influence, is just how many COI conversations am I having a week? How many networking conversations am I having a week? So like one client I was working with yesterday, he was super frustrated. He's like, "Man, I'm not doing anything. I'm so behind. My book of business has taken over." He's a broker. I haven't done shit for prospecting this week. And I said, "Okay, well, 2 weeks ago when we talked, you had a goal to do 2 networking conversations a week. How many did you do?" 4. I said, "Well, wait a minute. You did twice as many as we set a goal to, and you just said you did nothing." I said, "Well, what came of those 4?" He goes, "Well, from those 4, I set 2 follow-ups with 2 of the people, and the other 2 people referred me to 2 other people that I have meetings for on the books for weeks down the line." I'm like, "So wait a minute, those were super productive, created a lot of opportunity for you." And he's asking me about doing cold outbound. And I'm like, "Why wouldn't you just do more networking?" But he wasn't keeping track of it. It was just like he was just doing it and moving on to the next thing. So again, like just keep track if that's part of your sales flow is COI relationships, networking. It's like keep those things top of mind, make sure that you're tracking that stuff. And you're going to start to see gaps in that. It's like I'm way off my numbers. I'm way off track. I'm way out of balance. It's like, okay, well, what's preventing that from happening? So if you're tracking those 3 things, you can track some other things too, but from those 3 things, you should be able to start to determine what's keeping you out of the sales flow, what's keeping you out of the productivity rhythm that you need in order to be successful. So that's one, just like a simple little audit around busyness versus business or busyness versus productivity. Number 2, I think that another challenge that most of us face is, we talked about this 2 weeks ago a lot, which is we are not pre-planning for prospecting. We are proactively setting aside time to prospect. We're fitting it into the rhythm. Hey, Kimberly, we're fitting it into the rhythm of wherever it just happens to find its way in the week. It's very reactive by nature. I forget who said it, but somebody said you don't fall to the or rise to the level of goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Somebody else, I actually think it was Ben Franklin, that was attributed the quote that says people that fail to plan, plan to fail. And so it's like if we aren't proactive in terms of creating a revenue generating routine, we are going to find ourselves far behind. We're going to find ourselves not prospecting enough. So, with that being said, when it comes to a revenue generating routine, I would say that there should be 3 things that we should have on our calendar every single week if we have sales related focus. And I'm not going to talk about time right now per se. I'm just going to talk about like 3 necessary blocks a week. So one block, and this one's should show up 2 to 3 times a week. But the first block is actual prospecting. That would be outbound, new business related activity. So emails, phone calls, DMs, drops. You should have 2 to 3 of those each week on your calendar. A minimum of an hour, depending upon how much time you have. It could be more than that. So that would be block number 1. Block number 2 should be a separate block on your calendar, and it should be a follow-up block. That block should be on your calendar to follow up with anybody that said to you, not right now, but later, I am interested, but we just don't have the time. You know what? You're going to have to get back to me in a couple of weeks, but things are just kind of going crazy right now. So follow up. You should have an intentional time set aside. Again, what I find with a lot of salespeople is they have all of these outstanding things they need to follow up on, and they just try to shove it into the 7 minutes they have in between this meeting and the next one. And I feel like you need to have structured time that you plan and put on your calendar to set aside so you can intentionally do that. Because a follow up should never be taken flippantly. Like if somebody said to you, yeah, I'm interested, I just don't have the time right now. Cool. When do you have the time? 3 weeks from now. Cool. So 3 weeks from now, if I don't have it on the calendar, if we didn't schedule it, then I'm going to do that during my prospecting block. I mean, during my follow up block, when I can be very intentional with the time, when I can send a meaningful email, when I can really think about what I want to say, when I can pick up the phone and call them and see if I can get them on the phone. So I'm trying to be really intentional about following up. That's why that block needs to be there. Again, at least one a week, but you could do more if you find that you have a lot of people to follow up with on a consistent basis. By the way, prospecting and follow up, I highly suggest those not be done on Mondays or Fridays with one caveat. And I'm going to get to the caveat in a second. I don't think that you should do outreach and I don't think you should do follow up on Mondays because that is the day that everybody is in the most chaos coming back from the weekend. And so it is the time that they are going to spend the least on you because they have their own shit and their own priorities to deal with. Fridays suck because most people check out. The only caveat to prospecting and or following up on Fridays is Fridays before lunch if you are doing it in person. So if you are doing drops, if you are going eyeball to eyeball, Fridays before noon can be a very productive time, but you have to do it in person. If you're making phone calls or emails, I'm telling you right now, unless they're expecting you to reach out to them, they are not even going to look at it because they've got too much. They want to get to their weekend. They're going to tie up any loose ends and they're gone. And the problem is that they don't pay attention to it on Friday. The whole weekend goes by. They get inundated again on Monday. Guess what? Your email either just gets deleted or it goes to the very bottom of purgatory and it never comes out. So that's why those prospecting and follow up blocks should really be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, when at all possible. The last one, you can call this what you want. We call this like a pipeline acceleration block. And this is outstanding deals that are not across the finish line yet. So somebody has not said it. This is not the people that said to you, I'm interested, but you're going to have to call me later. These are people that said to you, yes, I love what you have to say. Let's get that meeting on the books. And then they ghost you. Or they say, you know what? Yeah, send that over to me. You send it over to them. You need to get some data back from them or whatever. And then they ghost you. Or you sent numbers to them. You're like, hey, here's what you'd be looking at. And then they go quiet. Or you eyeball to eyeball them. You proposed to them. You presented to them. And again, it went quiet. That should be a separate block that is put on your calendar. And again, all you're doing is going to war, trying to move deals farther along in your pipeline. Why do I separate those three things? It's because of this. Prospecting outbound requires you to be in a mindset where you are trying to build rapport and get somebody interested in talking to you for the first time. It's cold. It's a very specific type of outreach that you're doing. Following up is about re-engaging somebody at the level of interest that they had before you guys spoke in the first place. And then the pipeline acceleration is shitting or getting off the pot, right? We're almost there. And so I like to separate those three things because they're different types of investment of time. They're different types of language. There's different types of approaches that are going to take place. Can they be done together? Absolutely. But what I don't like that happens is when people put those into one large chunk, all of them, and then they half-ass through them all. So I would say you'd be far better off being diligent and intentional with your time. I would rather see people put 30 minutes for prospecting, 30 minutes for follow-up, and 30 minutes for pipeline. Spread those out around your day or week and do them that way versus trying to chunk them all together. So whatever time is appropriate for you, again, if you're in a sales role, you need to be doing at least 50% of your 40-hour week should be comprised of those three activities. And if you don't have proposals to follow up with, that means you got more time to do outbound, right? So it should be at least half your time. You should be doing at least 20 hours of outbound, follow up, and pipeline acceleration. That would be bare minimum. I would love to see you do more than that, but it should be at least that. Um, One thing that you can do just to see how this has been going for you, and it may be very obvious to you already with what I'm saying, is just go back and look at the last month on your calendar and see how much time you were spending in each of these areas. I know for me, it was so surprising to me when I started really studying my time, and this was back in like 2007. And I was realizing how inefficient I was with my time. And I was doing well. I was selling well. I was winning awards. And yet I was wasting so much time. Just allowing myself to get into these loops of like passing the time away instead of being really intentional with my time. Another thing, like I would rather have a very tight window of time where I stay focused and then dick around for an hour versus set aside 2 hours and be messing around, get intentional for a minute, mess around, get intentional for a minute. Like if I'm going to go into a prospecting block, I shut my door, I turn off all my notifications, I'm on do not disturb, and that's all I do. Because I know what happens if I start to do some outbound, which is frustrating, and it's not always productive in terms of like getting the result I want. As soon as a notification pops up, guess what I'm going to do? Thank God, I'm like, because I'm like, I don't want to stay in this misery. Whereas if I just stay super focused and set aside less time, I can get a lot more done. I'm telling you, you can get a ton more done in an hour than you can in two. It just sounds so weird, but it's like, I know I can stay focused. So just look at the time that you're spending and look at how you can be as intentional as humanly possible. Okay, one more thing and then I'm done for the day. But this is broken out into a couple of different things. And we've talked about this ad nauseum, but I'm going to do it again anyway. So when I think about outbound, when I think about prospecting, I always go back to networking and COI as pipeline opportunities. I will die on that hill. I think it is the number one way to create opportunities. Like I said, I was just telling that one client that I was sharing with you guys earlier. I'm like, dude, if you just keep doing this every single week, if you could just get one appointment a week from your network, you don't ever have to cold call again. So networking and COI as pipeline building is so incredibly beneficial. But only if, and you guys have probably heard me say this before, only if you treat those relationships as a sales channel and not a social time. I can't tell you how many times I used to go to networking events back in the day. I really don't do them anymore, but I would go to networking events back in the day and I had so many friends and I didn't never got any business out of it. And I was always like, why am I not getting business? It's because I'm just like talking about nothing, having fun, having a cocktail, whatever. It was just like such a waste. In this industry, I cannot tell you how many people go to conferences for an entire week and they come back and I'm like, so what did you take away? Well, I heard a couple of really good ideas. Yeah, but what are you going to implement? I don't know. Did you get any bit like, did you get any broker or business out of it? No. But you're going to go back over and over and over again. It's just like such a waste. Oh, you go to that networking group? Yep. What do you get out of it? Nothing yet. How long you been in it? 16 years? Whatever. It's just like, what are you doing? So I'm going to separate just for a second COIs from networking and just break it down just kind of very practically again, because I do get asked these questions a lot. I feel like I say the same things over and over again, but I guess it's worth saying. So when it comes to COIs, that's a monthly target for how many centers of influence you are going to meet with. So it could be one, it could be five. Frankly, for the sake of this conversation, I don't really care. You just want to make sure that on a monthly basis, you are setting aside time to meet with strategic partners or people that could potentially become a strategic partner. And here's a simple framework that you can use every single time that you meet with them. Because a lot of people are like, man, I don't even know where to go with this. So, and by the way, I would actually suggest that if you get to schedule a meeting, a coffee, a lunch, happy hour, whatever with somebody, that you share this with them ahead of meeting with them. So here's the thing. Your goal should be to share with them who you serve and why it's worth talking to you. That would be one. Number two is ask them, who is one person that you are looking to be introduced to? Type of person, blah, 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 whatever. And then three, go into every single one of those meetings because you should already know who you're meeting with. You should already have an idea of what they do. Go into every single one of those meetings prepared to make an introduction for them to somebody else in your network every single time. Super easy. I had a great call with a guy earlier today that if I can get into his back pocket, if I can get him to introduce me to some of his clients, it could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in business to me. And he didn't know me from Adam before we got on a call today. After 30 minutes, I had two introductions made for him already, just based on what he said and people I knew that did business in the same vicinity as him up in the LA area. And so it's like, I'm just going to give him people because I can't make a referral to him yet unless something comes to mind. I can't give him anything else. I can be a nice conversation, but it's like, if I can just make an introduction, I'm praying and hoping that one of those two people is valuable for him. Then he's like, damn, Ryan gave me an introduction that turned into value. I definitely want to refer clients to him. So that's the goal. Again, and you can send that ahead of time in an email. Hey, Gwen, I'm looking forward to meeting you for coffee next week. I just wanted to let you know ahead of time. My goal is to share a little bit about who I am and who I serve. I want to learn from you who best I can introduce you to, and I'm going to come prepared to introduce you to a couple of people in my network that I think could be valuable for you. When you send that to them, it's like, oh my gosh, that's a professional person. They're prepared to meet together. And you put them on notice that you're showing up with structure, which means they're going to be more likely to show up with structure. Because if you tell them that, then they're going to come into that meeting and they're going to be like, shit, I better tell them what I do and why they should introduce me to other people. I should be prepared to listen for referrals for them. And I'm going to bring some introductions to them too. So it becomes a reciprocal conversation by way of you setting an agenda ahead of time. And that's super easy to do. So that's the COI side of things. Networking, which obviously COIs can be produced through networking, but when you're going into a networking environment, into a group, there's just one thing that I would say that's super duper important is never step into or stay in an environment where your clients don't exist, potential clients don't exist, or where people that are in front of your existing clients don't exist. Never waste a single second. I know, like, it feels good to get into like feel good rooms. It feels good to get into rooms with other people that we have fun with, and those things can all happen. But during the business day, or if it's a part of a business effort, your goal should be solely to get into rooms with people that can put you in front of people that you can do business with. So that should be the qualifier every single time. And then treat that in the same professional manner that you would treat going into a COI conversation with. I'm going into those networking groups, I'm going into those rooms with the sole focus of telling people who I am and what I'm about, asking them who they are and what they're all about, and figuring out how to produce value for one another as quick as humanly possible. Now, the one caveat to a new networking environment that is a little bit different from COIs is they're not sure whether they can trust us or whether they like us or not. So it may require us to take that conversation outside of that room and have another conversation before we start asking for those types of things. So again, I would just say, like, you're going to be able to read the room quick. You're going to be able to know when somebody comes up to you and they're just creepy and looking at you weird, want to date you, or they actually want to do business together, or at least want to explore the possibility. And as soon as you hone in on that opportunity. Like, I don't wait to have 20 or 30 minutes of conversation in the networking room before I decide. Within minutes, I'm like, yeah, this is somebody I could tolerate coffee with. So just jump right into that. Or this is person I could have a follow-up phone call or Zoom with. Before you leave that conversation in that networking environment, if you've said to that person, again, hey, Kimberly, it's so great to talk to you. Let's set up coffee. And Kimberly's like, yeah, let's definitely do that. Awesome. Every single time I have coffee with a new connection, my goal is to make sure they know exactly who I am and who I serve, for me to learn who they are and who they serve, and to find ways to make introductions that are valuable to you right away. Sound good? Awesome. Looking forward to meeting you in 3 weeks. So again, it's like just this simple ask, kind of like proclamation at the end of, I take these things seriously. I know what I'm doing. I want you to come in and do the same thing. I am not having coffee to make friends. If we make friends along the way, that's super cool. But I am here to do business because, again, this goes back to busyness versus productivity. I don't have time to be busy. I only want to be productive, right? There's only so much time. So that is where my focus would lie. So again, just kind of like to reiterate really, really quickly is there is a way to structure and systematize my time so it becomes productive and returns for me versus just gets spent and I get to the end of my day and my week and I'm like, what in the heck happened to all the time I had? I worked 40, 50, 60, 80 hours in a week and it's like I didn't get anything done. And I know some of that's going to happen because it's chaos. But if we want to focus on the productivity side of things, again, the three reminders are number one, make sure that you are doing an audit of your time at all times. Am I just busy or am I being productive? Right? That was that first component. Secondly, was am I focused on revenue generating activities or just being busy? Those were the different blocks of time. And then finally was because I believe that COIs and networking can be such a valuable resource for me, and it's far better than cold calling anyway. Am I being intentional with those relationships and in those spaces? Or am I just willy-nillying the whole thing? If you do those three things, I feel like you can become far more productive than most people. And I'll say this, say the right things in front of the right people and you've got good discipline, you are going to outwork everybody else that's trying to be in the same rooms as you, that's trying to be productive. It's like the smartest people are never the most successful. It's always the people that work the smartest, right? So it's not here. It's really about the emotional intelligence and the discipline side of doing what we know we need to do on a day in and day out basis.